Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Tuesday, February 24th, 2015. Here are our top stories.
Tonight, a major study links fluoridated water to depression and weight gain. Then, Alaska legalizes marijuana. And the Federal Reserve head is opposed to an audit. That's next on the INFOWARS Nightly News.
We are being raped, and they are trying to train us like a pimp breaks his street hoe. We're being beaten like a dog by this system.
Well, Janet Yellen, chair of the Federal Reserve, says she strongly opposes auditing the Fed. I bet she does. What is it that you think she doesn't want us to see? Now, of course, it's not anything unusual for the federal government to say that we're not allowed to see whatever it is that they do. Every department of the federal government is acting as if they're the CIA. But of course, the Federal Reserve is a private company. It's no more federal than Federal Express, as everyone likes to say. We're seeing this happen, of course, with the Trans-Pacific and Transatlantic partnerships. Trade agreements that are affecting and will affect our sovereignty are being negotiated in secret by corporate lobbyists, and we're not allowed to see them. The public's not allowed to see them. Our elected representatives are not allowed to see them any more than we're allowed to see what goes on within the Federal Reserve. Now, of course, as they point out in this article, the Federal Reserve is saying that they're not going to hike rates for the next few Federal Open Market Committee meetings, according to her prepared remarks. That's really nice. They give 0% money to the banks, and they're loaning this out at 5%, 25% on credit cards. That's a pretty good deal, isn't it? And of course, that allows them to play the stock market, to invest in the stock market with this 0% money. They can pump the stock market up as we see that happening. Of course, we see, though, that J.P. Morgan, even though they're getting money at 0% interest, they're going to start charging corporate clients fees for leaving their money in the bank. J.P. Morgan is going to start charging big clients fees on some deposits. And of course, J.P. Morgan is the largest U.S. bank according to assets. They're saying they're going to charge large institutional customers for some deposits, citing new rules that make holding money for the clients too costly. See, the banks get the carrot. They get the 0% interest rate that they can then turn around and loan out at 5 to 25% interest rates. They can invest in stock markets. But if you want to try to just put money in the bank, you get the stick. That's what the new federal regulations are. As they point out, new federal rules will essentially penalize banks for holding deposits that are being viewed as prone to fleeing during a crisis or a stressed environment. So that's going to be passed on to the clients. Of course, the banks are not going to swallow those fees. What about precious metals, though? They've manipulated all these other markets. Well, we see that top international banks, as reported from RT, are facing a U.S. probe for alleged precious metals market fix. See, after they've had money laundering, they've funded money laundering for terrorists, for drug cartels, they've been caught involved in tax evasion, the LIBOR scandal. That's the next obvious thing, isn't it? Rig the markets, especially the precious metal markets, because the precious metal markets are counterpositioned to their fiat currencies. And of course, Loretta Lynch, the appointee that's going to replace Eric Holder, according to Obama, she was deeply involved with letting HSBC go from the money laundering scandals. And of course, this is one of the usual suspects, HSBC, along with J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Barclays, 10 international banks, the largest international banks. They say HSBC included in its annual report published Monday that the antitrust division of the American Justice Department asked the bank to submit documents related to an investigation into the price setting of gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. Now, of course, this is not necessarily something that's instituted by our Department of Justice. They basically said that these banks were too big to jail when they looked at money laundering for drug cartels and terrorists. They're not doing anything to them for these other crimes. I certainly don't think they're the ones leading the investigation, and of course, they really aren't. This started elsewhere. Swiss regulators, the FIMA, included its metal rigging investigation into a November settlement with the UBS Group. That's a Swiss bank, one of the largest Swiss banks, and one of the largest banks in the world, and one of the banks that they're looking at in this precious metal scandal. They had a settlement with the UBS Group over currency rate manipulation. There you go, something else that they're manipulating. Not just the stock market with the money that they get at 0%. They manipulate the currency markets. They manipulate the precious metal markets. They manipulated the LIBOR markets so that they could come after the credit unions, so that they could make more money off of variable rate interest loans. As they point out, they were sued in 2013 by U.S. regulator FDIC for causing millions of dollars in losses at credit unions by allegedly rigging the LIBOR benchmark rate. You see, the big crooks go free, but the small man on the street gets brutalized by our police force for absolutely no reason. Yet another case. Every day that goes by, we have dozens of these cases. San Diego County admits that their deputy had absolutely no reason to use force or to even stop a man who had Down syndrome. This man was hit, he was pepper sprayed, and then subsequently arrested, and the only charge was he was resisting arrest, except he wasn't. New video shows that he wasn't. This is a 22-year-old man, Antonio Martinez. His school records, doctors say he functions at a 7-year-old's level. They say this was a case of totally innocent, vulnerable child, essentially, that was beat up by these two guys. And guess who the two guys were? The names are absolutely amazing. We got Deputy Guy, and Captain Roddy. And I can just imagine the conversation as they're going down the street. Captain Roddy says, "There's a guy. Let's just go beat him up and pepper spray him. We don't have a reason." And Deputy Guy says, "Well, we're going to get in trouble." And Captain Roddy says, "Don't you understand how this works, Deputy Guy? We're cops. We have uniforms. Nothing ever happens to us. No matter how many times we do this, we never get disciplined. We never get fired. We never get put into jail. If anything happens, if the family sues, the taxpayer will pay it. Don't worry about it, Deputy Guy. We got it covered." That's what happens every day. And I'm really, frankly, sick and tired of seeing dozens of cases of brutality. We have a cupcake cop who attacks a 78-year-old woman. That happened today as well. When I first saw that, I thought they were talking about his waistline when they said cupcake cop. No, this is a guy who brutally attacked a 78-year-old grandmother who was trying to bring cupcakes to her grandchildren that she hadn't seen for a while because the parents were involved in a divorce. And so the cop at the school just brutalizes her. That's what happens every day. In Houston, we see now that while some rape kits set untested, suspects committed even more assaults. They say Houston officials announced Monday that they had completed DNA testing on 3 decades backlog of sexual assault kits. That's 30 years. Now, what happened in that amount of time? Well, they had 6,600 sexual assault kits that had been backlogged for decades. It's led to 850 DNA hits. And listen to this, 6 suspects allegedly committed other rapes while the DNA went untested. Now, as bad as this is, Houston is the first city to get through their DNA backlog. So the other cities are even worse. They're not even concerned about serious crimes like rape. Now, one of these cases where a person who was waiting to have their DNA test performed went on to commit other crimes. Listen to what this person did. They say it's unclear why this rape kit went untested, but while it was sitting around, the perpetrator went on to commit and be convicted of burglary of a habitation with intent to commit sexual assault. He was also later sentenced for 2 aggravated sexual assault cases and indecency with a child. There we go. So this is one case where he was not convicted of an additional rape, but he had a long rap sheet where he could have been stopped if they had done their work. I guess they're just overlogged. I guess they just don't have enough police. I guess we need to get more police. Well, look at the same department in Houston. We have a report going back 4 years ago, actually 5 years ago, April 2010. While they had this 3-decade-long backlog in rape kits that they hadn't tested, they're on a ticket writing spree. According to ABC News in Houston, they say in the month of March 2010, that's 5 years ago, the Houston Police Department handed out more than 109,000 traffic tickets. That's 3,500 speeding tickets a day, 147 speeding tickets every hour for an entire month. And that was up over 41,000 tickets from the previous month. So I don't think they have too few police. I think they have misplaced priorities. They're outwriting 147 speeding tickets an hour and not processing the rape kits. You understand the priorities. We've seen this very clearly in New York, where they just said they're not going to write tickets or arrest people unless it's absolutely necessary, and it dropped by over 95%, and crime went down because they're not focused on violent crime. But of course, another thing that they're always focused on is the war on drugs, confiscating people's property, destroying the rule of law, And now we see states pushing back. Alaska today has effectively legalized recreational use of marijuana. They say in this story we have at INFOWARS.com, it's a Reuters story, smoking, growing, and owning small amounts of marijuana became legal in Alaska on Tuesday as a growing decriminalization movement reached the U.S.'s wild northwest frontier. And they say, of course, Alaska is a Republican-leaning state. It's actually a lot more libertarian than it is strictly Republican. They say anyone age 21 or older can now possess an ounce of marijuana in Alaska and can grow up to 6 marijuana plants, 3 of which can be flowering. A lot of detailed rules here. You understand how they're setting traps up for people. This is not just, all right, we're going to stop harassing people about marijuana. They are embedding in here a lot of traps. Here's some more. Smoking in public and buying and selling the drug remains illegal, though private exchanges are allowed if money is not involved. A lot of traps there. And they say, well, the Obama Justice Department has cautiously allowed the experiment of marijuana legalization to proceed. They can't stop it. Show me the law that you have in the show me the authority you have in the Constitution to prohibit marijuana or anything else for that matter. Why did you have to have a constitutional amendment to prohibit alcohol and you don't need one for marijuana? They don't have any legal authority. And if the states and the people would stand up, we could shut down this federal tyranny. And I'm glad to see them doing it. I'm glad to see them poking a finger in the eye of an intrusive, all-seeing federal government. We also have, even in Washington now, we have some congressmen from some of these states where they have legalized marijuana introducing bills. We have 2 bills that were introduced last Friday in the U.S. House of Representatives that would legalize and tax adult use of marijuana federally. The one of them, introduced by a Colorado representative, is called Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. The bill calls for states to be allowed to choose to legalize cannabis if they choose to do so without worrying about repercussions from the federal government. Yeah, of course, because they don't have the authority. And it would also remove marijuana from being a Schedule I drug. Now, of course, Schedule I says this is a narcotic that has absolutely no medical use. And we all know that's an absolute lie. Medical marijuana is very effective for a number of remedies, glaucoma, for people who are suffering nausea from cancer, from chemotherapy. So the fact that they would make it a Schedule I drug law, that is a lie, but they don't have any authority to prohibit it. Even Schedule I laws, they don't have the constitutional power to prohibit that. The 9th and 10th Amendment make that very clear. Now, another bill that was put up by another congressman would essentially change it a little bit. They would not even, his bill would not even tax medical marijuana. They would exempt it. They say non-medical marijuana would initially be set at 10% and eventually rise to 25% over time as the black market is displaced by the legal market, at which point the higher rate of 25% will encourage a new black market, which will not be as dangerous as the one that we've got right now. It'll be like the black market in cigarettes that we see in New York because their taxes are so high. Of course, we also have seen someone killed over that. Eric Garner was killed over the excessive cigarette taxes and excessive enforcement in New York City. Stay with us. We'll be right back after the break. We have some new breaking information about the effects of, guess what? Fluoride. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The knowledge of the ancients, tried and true, trusted herbs and extracts fused with the latest nutraceutical science. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend, crafted with over 14 key ancient herbs and extracts to supercharge and prepare your body for what experts admit is the most dangerous season of the year. We have rejected hundreds of other formulations in our quest to bring you what is simply the most powerful and comprehensive proprietary formula that we have ever created in the realm of herbal immunity. For the last 2 years, our team has been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to develop the ultimate nutraceutical formulation. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. For a limited time, get 25% off on this introductory offer. Visit ancientdefense.com or call 888-253-3139. ancientdefense.com. Used since before the days of the Roman Empire to support the body's natural systems and enhance overall health. Introducing the new InfoWarsLife.com.